inclusive, because I mean we're a coalition. It's like we have different perspectives, different values. Some are more economic, some social, conservative, all different things. We come together under one family to work together for the best interests of Canada. So the I was expecting to see a election in the fall. We are very close to having an election. What happened? And the reason I was expecting that is because there's hundreds of billions of dollars, and Pierre will talk about that shortly, that has been going out. A lot of it is very needed. Much of it is needed, but some of it is not always, wisely managed. But we were expecting that, but there has been some scandals. We've heard of SNC Lavalin. Well, there was a weed charity. There was all different types of scandals. I will say one little scandal, you might not even heard of it. There was a member of parliament, and his name escapes me right now, from 2019, Liberal, where he didn't run again, but he was in September, I believe, he was given a contract for his company, which he just started two weeks before getting this contract, worth $250 million for ventilators, which he charged, which he didn't have any experience on. The company, it's a brand new thing, and they charged twice as much as the going rate. So this is a sort of corruption. This is sort of things that we're seeing happen. And so these sort of things were coming out. And I think that, Trudeau might have thought, maybe we should just wait a bit. So we are expecting that the next window that they're likely to be election will be in the spring, sometime in the spring. So we're getting ready for that. So before we go any further, we're going to have a poll question. We're going to try this out. And this is, you get to choose three different issues that you think are top of mind. There's 5 issues. What are the top 3 for you? And that will help us gauge, help Pierre gauge even as we go forward. So can we can we put the poll question up? Sean Mark, let's see.
The poll question is up.
It is up. Okay, now let's see if I can see it. Speaker view.
So, heading to 2021, which of these issues concerns you the most?
Okay, we're going to turn that. Okay. Do you guys see the? And Jay, can you control, like, making sure if everybody can also make sure that you're mute, okay? Unless there's Mimi, I think that you're not on mute. Oh, there we go. Thank you. It's nice to see you, Mimi. You're looking lovely, and it's great to see your granddaughter. She's a wonderful person. Hi, nice to see you. I met her.
I would add, yeah.
I don't see the poll question. So, Jay, can you take over right here?
It's up there. Yep, it's up there. It's 32 of 48 have voted. We'll let it run for another 20 seconds or so, and just. To note as well, as you think about questions that you might want to have in the discussion after Pierre has given his remarks, please use the chat function. That is the easiest way to type out your question and just make it nice and succinct so that we can ease into that as we go along. So you can enter them at any time, and we'll be taking note of them. So we'll go ahead, and it looks like the debt and deficit by far 88%, followed by the impact of COVID restrictions, 71. Then Trudeau's tax increases, Canada's relations with China, and then finally Health Canada's response to COVID. So if we can go ahead, we'll end the polling.
Okay, that's good. Just to get a sense right here.
Share the results. So there we go. There's the poll results on there. So some certainly one clear front runner, and then 3 more that are also of high importance on there. So useful information for sure to guide our discussion later.
Great.
Excellent. So
okay. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our guest speaker, Pierre Poillievre, and I must admit that out of anybody I like to see on question period, hold the Liberals to account, it would be Pierre, and it is. I would say that the Prime Minister and others, probably one of the people that they most don't want to hear the questions from would be Pierre also. He is an attack dog in a very positive way right there, and basically, not just putting up with just the glib answers. And so, I mean, they will give the glib answers, but it's trying to hold it to the account. And so, Pierre is a 5-term member of parliament, first elected in 2004. He's currently the shadow minister of finance. He champions free market, which everyone gets ahead on merit, not government handouts. He is born in 1979, June the 3rd. Pierre, you're born on June 3rd. Good day. It's my birthday.
Wow.
So, yeah, we're not twins.
We were born on the same day in the same year, probably in the same hospital.
Well, maybe because you're Franco-Albertan too, I was reading. So
yes, that's right.
Well, okay, I got
Calgary, Alberta.
All right. Well, we're a little north of there. So, and I think we even got some people from northern Alberta that could wave. I think we got a couple people, family. Maybe they're related to you too. So he's been a minister in the past under Harper. He served as a minister for democratic reform between 2013 and 15, a minister of employment and social development in 2015. So he is the MP for Carleton, in Carleton, Nepean, I believe it is. Is that correct? I believe. And so, anyways, he's done a great job. We have a picture. Jay, if you can put this is how our illustrious leader looks oftentimes at different times when Pierre asks him questions. So there we go. Oh, the other ones I've seen him kind of. I don't know if you saw this video. I wanted to actually get this on video because he was squirming, and it was very interesting. You see other times when he's questioning. I think of this one here, Trudeau all of a sudden dropped off, or no, the chair may have dropped off. I don't know, and then you took over and caused chaos. So Pierre is a man of chaos in a good way, chaos to the Liberals. So anyways, Pierre, it's great to have you here this evening, and thank you for joining us. I know it's a little later on your side, so we'll look forward to hearing from you, and afterwards we'll have an opportunity for some questions. Go ahead.
Mark, great being with you. Thank you for inviting me virtually out west. I wish I could be there with all of you in person. Mark brought up my famous exchange with Justin Trudeau when he appeared on the WE scandal at the Finance Committee to answer for why he stepped in to give $500 million to a group that had given his family $500,000. And we had a Liberal chair of that committee who was known for interfering to protect Liberal government members from tough questions. And mysteriously, in the middle of my cross-examination of the Prime Minister, the chairman's lights went out. They lost him from Zoom. And then because I'm the vice chair of the committee, I got to take over the entire meeting and run it while I was simultaneously doing the cross-examination, which is every opposition MP's dream. And a lot of people attributed to that incident to a fortuitous storm in PEI, the province from which the Liberal chairman comes. But it was actually Mark went to PEI and went to Wayne Easter's, the Liberal finance chair's office, and he actually pulled the cord and unplugged the internet and set it all up for me. That's how we were able to make this happen. So I wanted to have the opportunity to thank Mark for traveling right to the other side of the country to execute that black ops, that black operation.
That's our secret. Yeah. So now it's no longer a secret. Yeah.
So now you know how the real story. Anyway, it is great to be with all of you here today. The other day, Mark called me and he said, "Pierre, I have a serious question. Do you believe in free speech?" To which I replied, yes. And he said, "How would you like to give one?" That's how I ended up here today, giving today's remarks. Well,
you get to look at all these beautiful people, so there you go.
There are definitely a lot of beautiful people on this call.
Yes.
And I'm glad to be with them virtually, though Mark has promised that if I do this tonight, we'll get to have a visit in person as soon as the world reopens and our liberties are restored. We do live in interesting times, and my job is to be the finance critic for the Conservative Party in the House of Commons. And we are now adding more debt more quickly than at any time in the history of Canada. In dollar terms, let me put it into perspective. Our debt this year, our deficit this year, that's the amount we will add to our debt, is $381 billion and growing. Now, to put that into perspective, the previous all-time record was
Oops. Did we lose Pierre? Can we unmute him? Technical issue here. And I will go to
I'm
my.
back.
Oh, you're back. Oh,
I just
good.
wanted
All
to
right.
make sure everyone was awake. Anyway, we, as I was saying, we're actually spending about twice as much as we're bringing in now, the government of Canada, which is a ratio that I don't think has ever happened in the history of the government of Canada. Now, as a share of the economy, there is only one time in Canadian history when we've had a bigger deficit, and that was in World War II. In the early 1940s, our deficit was just over 20% of GDP. Right now, it's 17% of GDP. Now, the difference is that in 1946, 47, 48, when our ancestors came back from battling Hitler and Mussolini and Imperial Japan, they didn't go on vacation and they didn't keep adding to the credit.
This is an opportunity for us to just listen to think about what he said. It's an extended pause. Nice to see you, Chelsea. Sorry you didn't win the election here locally. Next time. And I see my brother Jacques, all the way from Ottawa.
Bonjour tout le monde.
Bonjour, Jacques. Bonjour tout le monde. I'm just the color commentator while we're waiting for Pierre. Ah, I have a cousin there. Gerard Baudouin. He's from Northern Alberta. We're going to, I think I saw Pierre. We're going to, there we go. Yep. Oh.
Connected here in Ontario as you are out west. We're a little bit behind the time, so I hope you'll forgive me for that. And if it happens again, I'll have to call in from my cell phone. But as I was saying, back in the Second World War, we ran massive deficits as well, but immediately began repaying them in the aftermath of winning that conflict. Our ancestors ran the biggest surpluses as a share of our economy in Canadian history in years 1946, 47, and 48, as big as 5% of GDP. That would be the equivalent of running a budget surplus today of over $100 billion, something that no one is even contemplating. But so when people say, don't worry, we can borrow like this because we've done it before. Well, it is true. We did it to win the war. But when our soldiers came back from battle with the accumulated salaries that they had been earning while fighting, but unable to spend, they were able to go out and put that money into the economy, while all of our war munitions factories were transformed into manufacturing production hubs that cranked out massive wealth, and government spending plummeted as we no longer needed to fund the munitions and salaries of war. We were able to put all of our resources into construction instead of destruction, and that's how we were able to quickly pay down Canada's national debt in the post-war years. Unfortunately, what Justin Trudeau is saying is, even when the COVID war is over, we're going to keep spending like it goes on forever. So imagine if our ancestors had said, well, now that we've won the war, we're going to keep spending as much money as we did to defeat Hitler and Mussolini. We're just going to spend it on everything else, and we're going to keep doing it forever until such time as people stop lending to us. That is effectively what Justin Trudeau has said. Even when COVID is done, he's not going to stop borrowing. So what's the limit to all of this? Well, it's very difficult to say. What I can tell you is that in 1996, we had a major financial crisis where the federal government almost defaulted because no one in the world would lend Canada new debt. We were so broke that the world didn't believe we could repay anymore, and therefore they wouldn't lend it to us. Now, at that time, our debt to GDP ratio at a federal level was 66%. 66%. Last March, our debt to GDP ratio was 30%. So we had a big buffer there. How much of that buffer have we eaten up? Well, by next year, it is expected that our debt to GDP ratio will be 55%. So we've gone from having a 36% buffer, as a 36% as a share of our GDP buffer between where we were and where we historically have almost gone bankrupt. So we don't know exactly when bankruptcy comes. It's like running towards the edge of a cliff in the middle of a fog storm. You only know when you're off the cliff when there's no ground under your feet. But at that point, it's too late. So that's why you need to stop running towards the cliff before you're off the edge. Unfortunately, we have a government right now that is determined to keep spending and borrowing. Now, the other problem we confront in this country is that in addition to this spectacular addition of new debt, we are one of the most indebted private economies in the world. Our consumers and our corporations prior to COVID were carrying record debt levels. And so there's now $2 trillion of consumer debt in Canada. Consumer debt is almost as big as our entire economy. There is more than that amount in corporate debt. And when you take the debt of our corporations, our consumers, and our governments, they now add up to 384% of GDP. In other words, we have $3.84 of debt for every dollar of annual income. That is the second highest in the G7. The only higher country is Japan. And for Japan, they have much more savings to buffer them. But this means that if interest rates go up, for every 1 percentage point increase in the effective rate of interest that we pay across our economy, it will cost the equivalent of 3.84% of our entire GDP. Now, that is more than the economy typically grows in 2 years. So the only thing that is keeping us safe now is low interest rates. As you know, though, interest rates are variable. Some of you will remember the 1970s and 80s. For between 1978 and 1980, interest rates rose from 8% to 23%, almost tripling. And they did that in just 2 years. Now, nobody expects them to rise to 23% anytime soon. We don't know. I asked the finance minister when she came to committee when interest rates will go up. And I did that knowing she couldn't answer it. She said, well, that's out of my control. And I said, exactly, it's out of your control. So it's just like saying, are you going to be hit by a reckless driver when you're in your car? Well, you don't know, but you put your seatbelt on. You don't put your seatbelt on after the car hits you. You don't buy insurance after another car hits you. You anticipate that something could go wrong, and you take prudential measures up front to protect yourself against that wrong. And so, what are the solutions to this debt? Well, historically, the number one approach that governments have taken when they're going bankrupt is to print money. Now, this is not a new idea. This is an extremely old idea. I like to talk about the story of Dionysius. He was the dictator who controlled Sicily when it was under Greek command about 2,400 years ago. And when he went broke, he required all of his citizens bring in the coins. They're called drachmas. And every 1 drachma coin, he stamped it with a 2, so that he's effectively doubled the amount of drachmas there were in the economy. He gave everybody back half of the coins they had given him. He said, it's the same number of drachmas. Every 1 coin is now worth 2. So you have the same number of currency, but I keep half of your coins, and he paid it off. Later on, we saw, moving thousands of years later, we saw examples throughout the modern European history where They would reduce the silver content in their coins to fund the wars. Right around the time of the Napoleonic Wars, the amount of silver in each coin in European countries dropped. Why? Because all of the kings needed to have more coins with less silver so they could fund the wars of the Napoleonic era. And whenever there are wars going on, you see less silver in the coins so that dictators and kings can pay for the costs of fighting wars. And more modern approach is simply to crank up the printing press. And we saw that with the Weimar Republic right before Adolf Hitler took control in Germany, where they started to print and print and print. And the Weimar Republic is famous for having people had to actually take a wheelbarrow to the store so they could buy themselves a loaf of bread. It was a true story that when men would go to the bar, they'd actually order 4 beer right when they got in, because the price of beer would have actually risen by the end of the night. So if they bought all their beer at the beginning of the evening, then they'd actually save on the inflation that would happen in the hours that follows. That's what happens when you print and create currency. You effectively create inflation. Now in Canada, we've begun this process of printing money. The Bank of Canada is buying up government debt and effectively printing money in order to do it. Its balance sheet has gone from $100 billion to $500 billion. So it's 5 times what it was in March. Our money supply has increased at its fastest rate.
Advertising break. So. Yeah, and again, I do want to thank all of you for generously helping out the campaign. It was just we met the goal that we had intended for this right here, and passed it. So that was tremendous. Now that's about half as much as we need for the election, but still it's gone very well. So I just really want to thank you for your each one of you for your response. So
we're not printing any money at all to pay for this fundraiser. We're doing it with real cash, not the stuff that's created out of thin air by the Bank of Canada. And this process of printing money, though, a lot of people say, listen, there's no inflation. We can keep printing all the money we want. But how many of you have had a young person try to buy a house recently? There's massive asset inflation that's been underway in Canada. And we see that regularly when we see people go out into the housing market. We've seen in the last year a double-digit increase in housing prices, even though we are in an economic crisis where earned incomes are actually dropping. South of the border, we're seeing, because they're printing money, stock market inflation. The stock market is roaring, even though the economy is crashing. All of which is the result of central banks printing money and inflating asset values. And what is the consequence of all this? The consequence is that the rich are going to get much richer, because if you have assets, your asset values are going to skyrocket. But if you're a wage earner with no assets, eventually your wages are going to become less valuable, because what you can buy with the dollars you earn is less than before. So this is a massive wealth transfer from the working class wage earner to the wealthy asset owner. And here in Canada today, we are starting to experience that phenomenon. There is no accountability at the Bank of Canada. They refuse to answer questions about what they're paying, who's profiting as this money is being circulated into the financial system. The bank is literally selling government bonds to raise Justin Trudeau some debt, and then buying those same bonds back at a higher price. And the consequence of that is that there are profiteers, investors who are profiting off of these transactions at our expense. Very wealthy people who are connected to the financial system are getting wealthier, while the central bank debases our money at a time when there's already record liquidity. So this is what we're up against. So what are we going to do about it? Well, the first thing is we have to make Erin O'Toole the prime minister. We have to defeat Justin Trudeau and replace him with a conservative government. And when we do, we will inherit a massive financial mess. And this is how we're going to dig out of it. One, we're going to unleash the mighty force of our 20 million workers. We're going to do that by reforming the tax system so that people keep more of their income. Right now, people can lose as much as 80 cents on each extra dollar they earn because of clawbacks to social benefits and taxes that they pay on that extra dollar. The consequence is that it's a major disincentive for work. We're going to reform the tax system so that companies spend less money trying to achieve loopholes and doing accounting tricks, and rather reinvest more in production and efficiency. We're going to reduce regulatory red tape so that businesses are no longer face as many delays. Do you know it takes 186 days longer to get permits to construct a major warehouse or factory in Canada than it does in the United States? 186 days more that an investor will have to wait before he can fill that facility with workers and start creating jobs. We are ranked 34 out of 35 in the OECD for the amount of time it takes to get a permit to build a major project in Canada. We're going to compress that, set the goal that Canada should be the fastest place in the developed world in which to get a permit. We're going to repeal C-69 and C-48 to allow the construction of pipelines and allow tankers to take our energy to world markets at full prices. We're going to pressure the provinces to allow immigrants who come here with professions or trade designations to quickly get permits to work in their field so that they can go from earning minimum wage to earning 6 digits salaries as doctors, engineers, architects, and mechanics, and others. We're going to break down interprovincial trade barriers so we can actually buy from each other rather than just buying cheap products that come in from abroad. And we're going to slow the growth of government spending. We're going to let the COVID programs lapse once the crisis is behind us and institute a pay-as-you-go model for government, which means that every new dollar a minister brings forward in spending will have to be matched with a dollar of savings so that no minister can add to the overall burden on taxpayers or future generations. That will inculcate a sense of discipline into how we spend. It will be a matter of this or that, not this and that. Politicians should have to make the same trade-offs that families and businesses do. When you decide you're going to take your kid, put your kid in skiing, well, it means he can't play hockey. If he's gonna play hockey, he can't do skiing. You've got to pick between the two because it has to fit your family budget. Well, politicians are going to have to start to live in the world of finite resources, where they have to judge between priorities, decide what's important, and God forbid, if they really want to spend the money, roll up their sleeves and spend a few days digging through their departmental budgets to find if there are any wasteful programs or initiatives that they could eliminate. That will inculcate a whole new level of discipline that will allow us to phase out our deficit, protect our economy, and transform us from That's the vision, my friends. Let's turn this from a monologue into a dialogue and hear your comments, suggestions, and questions. Mark, thanks again for including me. It's been great to have a few moments to share my thoughts, and I look forward to our exchange.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Pierre. I see a number of questions have already started to populate in the chat function, so that's great. Keep putting them there as you come up with them. First one here is: have we any projections on what the cost of the vaccine and getting Canadians vaccinated will be?
I do not have costing on the vaccine. I know that the government gained massive new procurement powers back in spring. We passed legislation empowering them to make those purchases without having to go back to Parliament. So I suspect that the full costing will not be available until well after this fiscal year ends and they begin doing the public accounts reporting. The normal reporting of expenditures on these matters is not in place right now. Some of that is justified. We are in a pandemic. It's difficult for government to tell us exactly what these kinds of specialized purchases are going to cost. But we will eventually find out when they publish something called the public accounts, which comes out the following fall after the fiscal year. So in the fall of 2021, we're going to have a big book. And in that book, we'll have an itemized expenditure of all of the purchases of vaccines, tests, PPE, and other purchases that the government made. But as of now, we don't have the full cost to report to you.
Yes, public accounts, or my time during a Treasury Board with Stockwell Day. It's a frightening document when you're on the government side. It's a great tool to have when you're in the opposition side. So next question. Why do we continue to borrow money to give it to other countries?
Oh, that's a very good question. And we ran on the platform in the last federal election as Conservatives that we would scale back foreign aid because a lot of the money is wasted and goes to wealthy insiders at the UN and other international organizations that soak up so much resources they take so much to do so little. And that's why we believed in scaling back that expenditure. But it's not just that we're giving money abroad through foreign aid. It's that our entire economy is now structured so that we borrow from the world to buy from the world. We've been running a trade deficit every one of the last 5 years, which means we buy more than we sell. The difference is paid for through debt or by exhausting our savings. It's very simple. If you lived on an island and you were buying from other islands more than you sell to those islands, you would be running out of gold to pay for it. So the only way you could do so is through IOUs or by draining your savings. And that's what we're doing. That's why we are so indebted. We have consistent trade deficits that enrich other countries. And when we borrow from the world to buy from the world is better off and we're poorer. We're left with the debt, they get the jobs and the investment. We cannot continue like this for much longer. That's why we need to unleash the force of the free enterprise system to put our workers into productive jobs so that we produce what we consume, that we make as much as we take, and that we sell as much as we buy.
Excellent. I'm going to cover there's a number of questions here that all start to touch on the same thing, the notion of the reset, great reset, however you want to frame it. And the Prime Minister making those remarks at the UNGA not too long ago. And so you're just maybe sort of your thoughts more on that line of thinking and that ideology.
Right. So first of all, the first thing you need to know about it is it's not a conspiracy. It's right there on the Prime Minister's website. It's right on the website of the World Economic Forum. Prince Charles has spoken about his vision of the reset. So it's not a conspiracy. It's right out in the open. It's a proposal. It's a proposal by a group of very privileged, wealthy insiders in government, in business, and in other elite fora to massively and permanently expand the power of government. Ideas range from keeping permanent electronic surveillance after the COVID pandemic is done. And that is something that the World Economic Forum has suggested, that now that we have all these people using the COVID app, that you could just keep those in place so that there would be permanent surveillance. Other plans include massively expanding the government's role in the economy to shut down traditional sectors like forestry, energy, manufacturing, and replace them with these new fantasy industries that we're told are going to be the future. Of course, they all require monstrous government subsidies. and regulatory protections to make them happen. But of course, there will be very well-connected insiders who get fabulously rich off of all of that government largesse. In the meantime, taxpayers and workers will be stuck with the bill. So that's what it's all about. It's a massive and permanent expansion of the size and scope of government, justified under the pretext of COVID. The idea that they have is that once that the governments have expanded as a result of COVID, and that's true. Government now represents about 53% of our entire economy, as opposed to 41% prior to the pandemic. And they effectively propose to make that permanent. They want to nationalize your drug plan, your daycare, your seniors' homes. They want to run industries. They want to permanently and spectacularly increase taxes to pay for it, as we saw from Justin Trudeau, who just admitted he would more than triple the carbon tax if given given the opportunity. So that's it in a heartbeat. And it's a terrible agenda. It will be devastating for most middle-class working families. But a lot of wealthy insiders who have close proximity to government will get spectacularly wealthy in the process. By the way, I do
excellent. You touched a little bit on.
I'm encouraging people to go to withpierre.ca, where I have a petition for people to sign up and fight back against it.
Maybe we can put that on the one of the Jay. We can put the link you just mentioned.
Yeah, I'll get to it. Yep, I'll get to it. So that maybe covers it off. But beyond the petition, there's a question. Sort of speaking on taxes, what are we going to do about the proposed carbon tax increase? Is there more that we can do, in Pierre, just beyond the petition?
I do have a petition on that as well. It's also at withpierre.ca. Feel free to sign that if you should be so interested. We're going to expose it. What this tax means effectively is not just that gas prices will go up 40 cents a liter, or that it will double your heating bill. It means that we're going to drive production out of our economy. It means that businesses will say there's no way to competitively produce goods and services in Canada because energy prices will be too high. So they'll move to other places, and then they'll import their products back into Canada. So other countries will get the jobs and the investment. We'll have to put our purchases of their goods and services on the credit card, and it will inculcate again this credit card economy where we buy from the world and we borrow from the world. So whereas Conservatives, we're going to scrap the carbon tax, and instead we're going to focus on technology rather than taxes. We have among the best environmental technology in the world. In Western Canada, they have in Saskatchewan and Alberta, they have capture of carbon. They capture it, put it right back in the geological formations in which it was originally found. They're among the best at manufacturing clean hydrogen because they've been doing it for years in order to inject it in bitumen and make it flow through pipelines, and to upgrade bitumen into synthetic crude so they can create clean, green, environmentally friendly hydrogen. We have nuclear power. We have among the largest reserves of uranium in the world in Saskatchewan, and we have among the best nuclear power plants in the world in Ontario. Why aren't we producing more clean, green nuclear power? We have a surplus of clean, green hydroelectricity produced in Manitoba and Quebec, which we should be selling to between neighboring Canadian provinces to shut down, to replace dirtier fuels. And we should be encouraging more export of that across the border into the United States through transmission lines that will shut down dirty coal fire plants and replace them with clean, green Canadian hydroelectricity. These things will all produce industry, create jobs, make us a paycheck economy rather than a credit card economy, and they'll all be fabulous for the environment. So that's our vision: technology, not taxes.
Excellent. This question is from Chelsea, who's a city councillor here in Maple Ridge. Basic income has been a hot topic. There's been provincial government reps talking about this. was more left-leaning as a positive initiative. Do you think that this is something the government will try to implement? And what are your thoughts on the potential impact of that if it were to be implemented?
Well, thanks very much, everyone. I've switched devices here. Can you hear me all right?
Okay.
Yeah, I just switched devices because
We can hear you loud and clear.
Excellent. So on the question of basic income, the original idea of a basic income came from an economist named Milton Friedman, who was a conservative American economist whose idea was to replace basically all government programs with a single check that every citizen under a certain income level would get. And then they would be able to go out and purchase their own benefits, their own health insurance, their own housing, their own everything. And that you would basically replace government, the system of governmental social welfare, with a direct payment to each citizen in need, and then trust those citizens to use that money to their best interest. What we're hearing today is very different from that. What today's proponents are saying is, let's keep the entire apparatus of the state and stack a big check for every citizen on top of that. Now, this would cost anywhere between 80 and $300 billion per year forever. And those are the $80 billion is really the skinny package, the skinniest package you can imagine. And the result of it would mean you'd have to raise taxes. So by subsidizing people's income on the one hand, you'd be reducing it on another, because everyone would be paying far higher taxes in order to fund this thing. There's also some very strange beneficiaries of the proposal. According to one liberal economist from BC who looked into the basic income idea, he said that the biggest beneficiaries would be above average income students. So kids who are 19, 20, whose parents are very affluent and who are very well provided for, would all of a sudden, under this basic income proposal, be getting, somewhere between $17,000 and $25,000 a year in tax-free income. And the people paying for it would be working class, the working class wage earner. You think of the guy who graduates from high school and goes straight off to his job and makes $20 an hour. Well, he'd be paying higher taxes, while the wealthier and more affluent young person going to university would be getting $17,000 to $25,000 a year for free. So you'd be punishing the working class, and you'd be helping people who are already better off. And in the process, I think there's no question that it would lead to massive tax increases. To fund an $80 billion program would mean you would have to at least quadruple the GST from 5% to 20%. Now, plus you'd have your provincial portion on top of that. So that's the math of this. Anybody who comes to you with this idea of a basic income, ask them to tell you how they would pay for it. None of them give that answer. They always say, oh, well, that's a detail. We'll sort that out one day, but don't worry, we'll figure out a way. No. How are you paying for it? You might want to have a Rolls Royce, but everybody wants a Rolls Royce. Nobody wants to buy a Rolls Royce. The same is true about a basic income. Everybody wants to have free money. Nobody wants to pay the price to get it.
Excellent. Thank you, Pierre. A couple more, just a couple, one more question here that came in from Warren Smith is, what groups do we have to attract and add to our Conservative coalition if we are to form government in the next election?
Well, maybe I'm biased because of the riding I represent in South Ottawa here, but I believe that it's middle-class moms and dads in the suburbs. We are doing a terrific job of winning over rural people. Thank God for rural people who have such great, solid common sense. We're doing great in rural Canada. We're having a hard time in downtown urban settings. But the battleground, I think, is going to be in the suburbs of Vancouver, Toronto, and then a collection of smaller centers, Kitchener, Waterloo, the capitals of Atlantic Canada, and some of the other small and mid-sized cities of Atlantic Canada, the London, Ontarios. These are the Niagaras, etc. These are the kinds of ridings where we lost very narrowly the last two elections, but we used to win them when Harper was prime minister. So the biggest category of swing voters that we encounter is moms and dads with a mortgage, who are struggling to get by. They're doing okay, but they'd like to do better, and they're worried about how they're going to keep paying the bills if interest rates go up. I really believe that is the biggest group of swing voters that will determine whether or not we form government in the next election.
Excellent. I'll take one last question here, just because we're getting to the top of the hour, and I've seen it come up a couple of times. Just some concern about Canadians' pensions. Are our pensions safe, particularly on the CPP OAS side? And did laws was there a law changed in 2018 that could affect that?
So let's break this down. The OAS is not a pension, it's an income security program. It is funded out of your tax dollars. So it comes out of the consolidated revenue account of the Government of Canada. This is the big old bank account the Government of Canada uses to pay for everything it funds. That is safe as long as the finances of the Government of Canada are safe. That's why it's so important that we act now to protect our finances against an eventual crisis. We can avert a crisis by stopping the insanity and slowly phasing out our deficit so that our debt levels are sustainable. Then we'll have OAS secure, indexed, and there forever. The only way to guarantee that is a conservative government that can actually do math and run the finances of the nation. The CPP is not funded out of your tax, directly out of your income or consumption taxes. It's funded out of a separate payroll tax, the CPP contributions that you and your employer pay. That money goes into a completely separate fund, which, thank God, is out of the reach of politicians. The CPP is managed by a professional team headquartered in Toronto with offices all around the world that invest in income producing assets far and wide. The CPP now has in its portfolio $456 billion. So we have almost a half a trillion dollars saved away in Canada's CPP. Now, I hesitate to say that out loud because I don't want the Liberals to find out that there's that much money there. I don't want any politician on Parliament Hill to even realize. I think most of the Liberals and New Democrats are too disinterested in finance to even have noticed that all of this money has accumulated in our piggy bank for our pension system. And I'm thankful that they don't notice it. The only reason that the CPP is doing so well is because Justin Trudeau's hands are nowhere near it. The CPP, you can't change the rules for the CPP without having the support of the provincial governments because it's a shared program. But here's the risk. I'm worried that Justin Trudeau is going to realize how broke the federal government is, and if he's still prime minister in the next several years, and he's going to get big eyes when he looks over at the CPP. He's going to say, "Well, we broke the bank, folks. We now need to go looking for money." And then, just like a Liberal, he's going to run off and say, "There's all this cash in the CPP. Wouldn't it be nice if Justin Trudeau could get his sticky fingers on it?" And so we need to be, and I've said this in the House of Commons in a very extensive speech on the CPP just last week, we as the Conservative Party are going to fight tooth and nail to keep greedy politicians from sticking their hands in that money pot. It doesn't belong to the politicians. It's not for the purpose of government spending. That money has one purpose, and that is to provide a secure retirement to Canadians. We are the only party that will defend the CPP against those politicians.
Thank you. Thank you, Pierre. I will say that right after the fiscal update, this was given about 3 weeks ago, the deputy minister of finance decided to resign. There is a lot of concern with those that know, even within inside the Liberal government, that have a fiscal sensibility. They are not happy at all. Very worried. Now, you didn't realize this, but there is going to be a test right now. So I'm sorry. No, you can't sign off. And here's the test. Down in the reactions, the test is this. Would you like to see Pierre Poillievre become the next finance minister? You're down there, there's a thumbs up. You can put it right there. That's the test. Okay, I'm gonna put mine right there. So yeah, so that is, Pierre, your understanding of the economic situation where we're at as Canada is what we need. And I appreciate that insight, how you bring that to the floor, which makes them very uncomfortable because you're asking questions that they don't really know the answer, and so they're just talking off their just off the napkin, if you want to say that right there. So thank you so much for coming and sharing just your thoughts. We need a change of government. So I will say also, again, thank you to everyone for joining us this evening. I want to have more events coming in the new year. Maybe get Aaron O'Toole to join us, possibly in an event coming in the new year. And if so, we'll pass out. We'll send an email. We're interested in your feedback. Things we can, people, issues you might want to talk about. Just different things we can do to just to reach out. This one here was, it would have been nice to have one open to everybody, but this was a fundraiser. We did not have a sit down dinner like we have in the past, so we have to do this right here. And you know what? It's actually been quite successful. So thank you so much. I will say, Jay, if you can put up that slide, there is a ongoing monthly. Here is a slide right here. So rather than doing the one time, what really does help us for cash flow, if you look right here, we'll send this later on, but kind of ongoing commitment. This right here is your donation of $33 a month. Your actual cost to you is $825, and that works out to be about $400 a year. So that type of cash flow, it makes a difference and totally prepares us for the election. Thank you for if you're able to do that for this coming year, that's great. There's this one here is for $400. Whatever amount that you're interested, you can do it now, or we'll put the link up, or else we will also send it. And but again, I do thank you for your generosity. And so I'm available if you have, if you want to email me, call me, if there's issues, I'm here to work for you. And Marlene and I and the board, we want to wish you all a Merry Christmas. I did see Nirmala Jacob. Nirmala, can you wave? You're there somewhere. Oh, hi, Nirmala. Now, Nirmala, she's very special. So is her husband. Her husband is special. As a matter of fact, you guys are all special. But Nirmala is going to be sending you the tax receipts. So if you're wondering where it's going to come, it'll be coming in the new year. So that we calculate it from the entire year, and then we'll send them off. So thank you, Nirmala. And again, thank you, everyone. And nice to meet with each other. And again, Merry Christmas.
Yeah, I would add, if you are able to donate prior to December 31st, the wait to get your tax rebate is much, much shorter. So if you do have the ability to donate anything at all between the next 17 days, that would also be much appreciated.
Yeah, make sure to claim your tax refund as quickly as possible so that you get your money before the government goes broke.
Okay. All right. Good.
Sound advice.
Sound advice. Okay. Once again, thank you, Pierre. Thank you, Jay. Thank you, everybody else for joining us. Until next time.
Thanks, everyone. Great to be
Thank
with
you.
Can't wait to be back out in the West.
Did we listen to this again?
Yeah. Oh, I was going to say one more last thing, and that is we will be sending this link to all of you. We recorded this. There are people that did actually want to participate. They couldn't because of the time. We are going to sing that. We'll send this link to you so that you can maybe even see yourself on Zoom.
Yeah.
Or Mark, I could just give my speech all over again.
You could, yes, over and over. Yeah, well, exactly. Okay, tomorrow.
I'm here all night, folks.
All night. Okay. I think what time is it there? It's about 10 o'clock over there. Great. Merry Christmas, everyone. Okay.
Best end.
Hey.
Yeah.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Merry Christmas, all.
Merry
Merry
Christmas.
Christmas, everybody.
Okay. Yeah.
Merry
Bye.
Christmas, everyone.
Okay.
Pierre, see you around.
From
Merry
looking
Christmas.
Levy,
like
nice to see you, Levy. Nice to see you, Christine, and I see all the names: Bernie and Martin and Rainer. All great to see everybody. Okay.
See you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Okay. Bye-bye. I'll go down with the ship. I'm the captain. There you go. See,
I'll stay with the captain there.
Okay,
You don't go down alone.
don't go down alone. Okay. Yeah, no. Who's PCC? The PCC is Premier Christy Clark.
Premier Christy Clark.
Is this the after party?
Maybe she was on. I don't know. So it must. And Christine, okay, great. And V2 Pro, is that that's what, there's a V1 rocket and V2. So we have all sorts of interesting people here tonight.
Hi, Shaunalee.
Hi, nice to see everybody.
Brandon's mom.
We see Porter's La Prairie.
Yeah, it's Brandon's mom.
Oh, that's Brandon's mom. Hi,
Yes.
Brandon's mom. Great to see you.
Hi, Shauna.
Hi.
Hey.
I see Paul C. Is that Paul Carrier? I don't
Sorry,
know.
Mark.
Yeah. Oh, Robin. Hi, Robin.
Hi.
You can show. You have to show your face.
Go help a friend.
Robin Picard. Okay. Okay.
I am trying to figure out how this works. When I press on the little video camera, it doesn't give me a choice to unblock it. It just says mute and cancel.
There's.
It
Well, in the
doesn't give
meantime,
me the-
I'll say hello to my niece. Hello, Rachel. There she is. She's a smart cookie. Her. Yeah.
I just wanted to say or ask Mark or reiterate, you said that you were going to send us a videotaping because I missed most of it. I had to go help a friend. So
Yes.
I just
Everybody that registered, you're going to get the video of this also. And you know what?
Oh,
No royalties.
fantastic.
It's